Let's talk about perfume ads. You know the ones, all mystery, glamour, and desire. They're beautiful to look at for sure, but what are they really selling us?
It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is actually pretty deep, because when you buy a fragrance, you're not just buying a smell, you're buying a story, an identity, a feeling. You're buying into a fantasy.
I mean, just look at this classic ad for Guerlain's Shalimar. The name itself means Temple of Love in Sanskrit. And this image? Well, it's not trying to tell you about floral notes or spicy undertones, is it? No, it's offering you access to this whole world of sensuality and desire. This right here, this is the traditional perfume marketing strategy in its purest form.
Now, to really get how things are changing, we first have to understand the old playbook. For decades, the fragrance industry used a very specific set of tricks to sell its products. And, they often reinforce some pretty outdated and kind of problematic ideas about gender. So what was this traditional playbook? Well, ads almost always revolved around the hypersexualization and objectification of women, presenting them through a male gaze. They basically reduced women to their physical attributes, creating this super narrow and stereotypical idea of what it means to be feminine. Let's just go back to that Shalimar ad for a quick second. See the placement of the bottle cap? It's held right over the woman's chest. And according to researchers who've analyzed this stuff, the subtle message is that opening the perfume bottle is like gaining access to the woman herself. It's a really powerful and honestly a pretty troubling message.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing. Here's an ad for Dior's Pure Poison. The imagery here just screams Snow White, right? You've got a woman, seemingly unconscious, just waiting for a prince, a male savior, to come rescue her. This is that classic damsel in distress trope, another major part of the old playbook.
So the message was crystal clear. In this old advertising world, perfume was a tool. For men, it was the key to unlock female desire, and for women, it was a passive lure, something you'd wear while you were waiting around to be chosen or saved. But then, over the last decade or so, something started to shift. All of a sudden, the industry started speaking a new language. You started hearing words pop up like fluidity, choice, and individuality. It really seemed like a deliberate move away from those rigid, sexist stereotypes of the past. This quote from a luxury packaging conference back in 2015 really says it all. The industry began openly talking about knocking down borders and blurring those codes. It was a clear signal that they wanted to position themselves as champions of a new, more progressive way of thinking about gender.
And just like that, ads weren't just about seduction anymore. They were about self-expression, about the freedom to choose who you want to be. And on the surface, this looks like a huge step forward, right? Like a direct response to feminist critiques. But is it really about social progress? Or is there something else going on entirely?
Well, according to researcher Magdalena Peterson-McIntyre, this big shift isn't really about feminism. It's about commerce. Specifically, it's about completely redefining the idea of luxury for you, the modern consumer. The key concept we need to understand is something sociologist Jill Lipovetsky calls emotional luxury. This is a whole new kind of luxury. It's not about showing off your wealth with flashy stuff. It's about private, personal experiences, self-pleasure, and, this is the most important part, the freedom to be independent and basically build your own identity. So here's the difference in a nutshell. What we might call eternal luxury, the old school kind, was all about public displays of status. Think diamonds, furs, fancy cars. It was about showing you belong to some exclusive club. Emotional luxury, on the other hand, is all about independence and self-pleasure. The ultimate luxury isn't just having things, it's the freedom to choose who you are. Okay, so if the new luxury is the freedom to choose, how on earth do you sell that in a bottle? Well, brands have come up with some very clever strategies to market this exact feeling, and they use the very idea of gender as their main tool to do it. Researcher Magdalena Peterson-McIntyre points out three main strategies that brands are using. First, they offer you an abundance of choice. Second, they sometimes remove gender entirely to make something feel high quality. And third, and this is maybe the most interesting one, they use an excess of traditional gender symbols, but in a new, almost ironic way. Let's break down a couple of these. So, let's start with that first strategy, offering an abundance of choice. A perfect example is Dolce & Gabbana's Anthology series. They launched 5 supposedly unisex scents and promoted them with 6 famous supermodels, all while playing George Michael's song Freedom. I mean, the message couldn't be any clearer. Here is a whole wardrobe of identities. The luxury is being able to pick and choose who you want to be today.
Now, that third strategy is where things get really fascinating. It's almost a paradox. Instead of trying to blur gender, it leans hard into hyper-feminine symbols, but it reframes them as a form of powerful individual choice.
Okay, the perfect case study here is Carolina Herrera's Good Girl. The bottle is an impossibly tall stiletto heel. Now, the stiletto is such a complex symbol, isn't it? It can represent female power and confidence, but at the same time, it can represent physical restriction and being seen as an object. This bottle, which is an unwearable shoe, becomes a piece of art, a symbol to be admired on its own terms.
And then you have the brand's tagline, "It's so good to be bad." This just captures the fantasy perfectly. It's selling the luxury of choice, the choice to be a bad girl without ever losing your status as a good girl. It turns rebellion into a sophisticated, luxurious consumer choice.
So, here's the bottom line. The actual product has changed. The industry isn't just selling sex or romance anymore. It's selling the idea of empowerment itself, and it's packaged as the ultimate emotional luxury, the freedom to choose your own identity, one fragrance at a time.
So that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Now that we've pulled back the curtain a little bit, the next time you see a perfume ad, try to look past the beautiful models and the glamorous settings. Ask yourself, is this selling me a scent, or is it selling me a choice? What fantasy exactly are they trying to sell me?